Put your hands where I can see them. Step away from the register, now!
Officer, hands are up. I work here. Brent told me to do the cash.
I don't care what he told you. Turn around. Hands behind your back.
I'm complying. Check the schedule on the wall. Check the security footage.
Stop talking. You want to get hurt? Move, now!
You're making a mistake. I'm not resisting. Refusing to...
Put your hands where I can see them. Step away from the register. Now. The command cut through the low hum of the oak and iron hardware store like a cracking whip. It was 10:15 a.m. on a bright Tuesday in July, the kind of morning that usually smells like sawdust and fresh paint. But right now, the air was thick with tension. Marcus Thorne, a broad-shouldered young man of 20, froze. His hands were hovering over an open cash drawer holding a stack of $20 bills he had been in the middle of counting for the mid-morning drop. He didn't drop the money. He didn't run. He didn't flinch. He slowly placed the bills back into the slot, raised his hands to shoulder height, palms open, and turned slowly to face the voice. Standing 10 feet away, hand resting ominously on the grip of his service weapon, was Officer Kyle Vance. Vance was 28 years old, wearing the uniform of the Metro Police Department, but he wore it like a costume he was still trying to grow into. Chest, puffed-out jaw-set eyes, hidden behind mirrored aviators despite the fluorescent lighting of the store. Beside him stood the store manager, Brett Miller, a man in his late 30s whose nervous energy was practically vibrating off his cheap polyester tie. Miller was sweating, pointing a shaking finger at Marcus. "That's him, officer. I told you, he's emptying the register. I caught him red-handed." Marcus looked at Miller, confusion warring with a cold, sinking realization. "Brett, what are you talking about? I'm doing the drop. You asked me to do the drop 10 minutes ago." "Don't you talk to me," Miller snapped, stepping behind the officer for protection. "I never authorized you to touch that money. You're stealing corporate funds. Officer, I want him removed. I want him arrested." Officer Vance took a step forward, closing the distance. He didn't look at the employee name tag pinned to Marcus's blue polo shirt. He didn't look at the stack of receipts neatly organized on the counter. He saw a tall black man behind a counter with cash in his hands, and he had a manager screaming theft. In Vance's world, the math was already done. You heard the man, Vance said, his voice dropping an octave, trying to sound like the movie version of a cop. "Step out from behind the counter. Keep your hands up. Do it now or things get ugly." Officer Marcus said, his voice remarkably steady for someone staring down a gun. "I work here. My name is Marcus Thorne. I'm the shift lead. If you look at the schedule on the wall behind me..." "I'm not interested in your stories," Vance interrupted, cutting him off with a sharp gesture. "I'm interested in you complying with a lawful order. You are currently trespassing and suspected of grand larceny. Move." The store had gone silent. Customers in the aisles, contractors buying lumber, suburban dads looking for drill bits had stopped what they were doing. Phones were coming out. The red recording lights were blinking. Marcus saw them. He knew exactly what this was. He stepped out from behind the counter, moving with the slow, deliberate precision of someone who knows that a sudden movement could be their last. "I am complying," Marcus stated clearly, loud enough for the phones to pick up. "I am an employee of this store. I am not resisting." "Turn around," Vance barked, spinning Marcus by the shoulder. "Hands behind your back." "You're making a mistake," Marcus said, looking over his shoulder, his eyes locking onto Vance's mirrored glasses. "A big one." "Save it for the judge," Vance sneered. Officer Kyle Vance had been with the Metro Police Department for 4 years, and in that time he had built a reputation that should have had him stripped of his badge long ago. He was what the older guys on the force called a cowboy, a transfer hire from a rural county who brought a rough, untrained aggression to the city streets. He was 28, but he carried himself with the arrogance of a man who believed the badge granted him divinity. He didn't patrol to serve. He patrolled to hunt. Vance's file was a minefield of redacted paragraphs and insufficient evidence findings. There were 9 formal complaints against him in 4 years. 6 of them involved excessive force against minority suspects. 2 involved verbal abuse. One was for an unauthorized vehicle pursuit that ended with a civilian car wrapped around a telephone pole. In every single instance, Vance had hidden behind the union representatives and the blue wall of silence. He knew how to write a report. He knew the keyword suspect appeared aggressive. I feared for my safety. The subject assumed a fighting stance. These were the magic spells that turned brutality into procedure. He believed his judgment was infallible. He categorized the world into two distinct buckets, the sheep and the wolves. In his mind, he was the sheepdog, the necessary violence that kept society functioning. But the truth was far uglier. Vance didn't see people. He saw profiles. He saw a young black man handling money, and his brain didn't register cashier. It registered perpetrator. When the call came in from Oak and Iron Hardware about a robbery in progress involving an employee, Vance hadn't waited for backup. He hadn't asked the dispatcher for details. He had hit the lights and sirens, adrenaline flooding his system, eager for the takedown. He wanted the collar. He wanted the action. He didn't know that the manager, Brett Miller, was currently under investigation by corporate for inventory shrinkage and was looking for a scapegoat. He didn't know that Miller had been trying to provoke Marcus for weeks, threatened by the young man's competence and intelligence. Vance didn't care about the context. He only cared about the visual, him the hero taking down the bad guy. As he grabbed Marcus's wrist, twisting it sharply behind the young man's back, Vance felt a surge of power. This was where he lived. This was the moment of total control. He didn't notice that Marcus wasn't fighting back. He didn't notice the expensive watch on Marcus's wrist or the high-quality leather belt he wore. He didn't notice the calm intelligence in Marcus's eyes. Vance was blinded by his own bias, convinced that he was cleaning up the streets one thug at a time. He had no idea that he was gripping the arm of a young man who had spent his entire life preparing for this exact moment, not with violence, but with the law. Vance leaned in close to Marcus's ear. "You guys never learn, do you? Think you can just take whatever you want?" It was a whisper meant only for Marcus, a little extra twist of the knife. It was the voice of a man who bullied because he could, a man who had never faced a consequence he couldn't lie his way out of. That streak was about to end. Marcus Thorne was not your average hardware store employee. At 20 years old, he was a junior at the State University holding a 3.9 GPA in political science with a pre-law track. He was working at Oak and Iron for the summer, not because he was desperate for cash, but because his parents believed in the value of hard work. They had raised him to understand the world from every angle, from the view of the people at the top and the people working the floor. He was saving money for his LSAT prep courses, taking pride in earning his own way despite coming from a family of considerable standing. Marcus had grown up in a house where the law was discussed at the dinner table like sports scores. He knew the Fourth Amendment before he knew the rules of baseball. He knew the difference between reasonable suspicion and probable cause. He knew Terry v. Ohio and Miranda. More importantly, he knew the reality of being a black man in America. His father, a district court judge, and his mother had given him the talk when he was 12. They had drilled it into him. Comply. Survive. Document. Sue later. As Officer Vance twisted his arm, Marcus felt the sharp pinch of pain in his shoulder, but he forced his breathing to remain even. His mind went into a cold, analytical mode. He was cataloging everything. Time. 10:17 a.m. Officer did not ask for identification. Officer did not interview the witness separately. Officer did not review security footage. Officer used derogatory language. No Miranda warning given. Marcus looked around the store. He saw Mrs. Higgins, a regular customer who bought birdseed every Tuesday, holding her phone up, her hand shaking. He saw the contractors by the lumber desk watching with grim expressions. He knew the cameras in the ceiling were rolling high-definition 4K cameras that had been installed last month. "Officer," Marcus said again, his voice projecting calmness he didn't feel. "My wallet is in my back right pocket. My identification is in there. It lists my address. It matches the employee file in the back office. If you check it, you will see that I am the shift lead." Vance ignored him, shoving him forward against the counter. "I don't need your ID to know what I'm looking at. You're holding the bag. That's enough for me." Marcus tightened his jaw. He could have screamed. He could have told them who his mother was right then and there, but a part of him, the part that was studying to be a prosecutor, knew that he needed to let this play out just a little longer. He needed the violation to be absolute. He needed there to be no ambiguity about what was happening. If he dropped his mother's name now, Vance might back off, claim it was a misunderstanding, and slither away to harass someone else next week. Marcus realized with a heavy heart that he had to be the example. He had to let the trap snap shut. "I am asking you to verify my employment," Marcus said, speaking for the record. "I am asking you to view the security footage which shows Manager Miller handing me the keys to the register 10 minutes ago. Are you refusing to investigate exculpatory evidence?" Vance laughed, a short, barking sound. "Did you hear that?" he said to Miller. "We got a jailhouse lawyer here. Exculpatory evidence. That's cute. You can use all the big words you want downtown, kid." The tragedy of the moment was in the dismissal. It wasn't just that Vance was arresting him. It was that Vance refused to believe Marcus could even possess the vocabulary he was using. To Vance, the words were just noise mimicry. He couldn't conceive that the young man in the blue polo shirt might know more about the law than he did. The handcuffs came out. The sound was distinct, the metallic ratchet of the jagged teeth sliding into the locking mechanism. Click, click, click. Vance ratcheted them tight. Too tight. The metal bit into the ulnar nerve of Marcus's wrists. "Those are extremely tight, officer," Marcus said, wincing. "I am losing circulation." "Don't do the crime if you can't do the time." Vance recited a cliché he'd probably waited years to say. He grabbed Marcus by the bicep and spun him around to face the store. "All right, show's over, folks, just cleaning up the trash. Go about your business." But the customers weren't going about their business. The atmosphere in the store had shifted from curiosity to hostility toward the officer. "He's worked here for 2 years, Mrs. Higgins shouted from the birdseat aisle. "He helped me carry mulch to my car last week. You're arresting the wrong person." "Stay back, ma'am, or you'll be joining him for obstruction," Vance warned, pointing a finger at the elderly woman. Brett Miller, the manager, was starting to look pale. He had wanted Marcus gone, maybe fired, maybe scared. He hadn't anticipated a full-blown spectacle with an audience. "Officer, maybe just take him out the back," Miller suggested, his voice wavering. "No," Vance said, puffing his chest out. "We do this by the book. We walk him out the front. Let everyone see what happens when you steal in my town." Vance began to march Marcus toward the automatic glass doors. It was the perp walk, a deliberate tactic to humiliate. He wanted Marcus to feel the shame. He wanted the community to see Marcus in chains. But as they walked past the aisles of hammers and wrenches, Marcus held his head high. He didn't look down. He made eye contact with the people recording him. He nodded slightly to the contractors. He was maintaining his dignity in a situation designed to strip it away. This was the point of no return. Vance had ignored the ID. He had ignored the witnesses. He had ignored the security cameras. He was operating purely on the word of a sweaty, nervous manager and his own internal bias. He had bypassed every procedural safeguard designed to prevent this exact situation. They reached the front doors. The heat of the July morning hit them a wall of humidity. Vance's patrol car was parked in the fire lane, lights flashing silently. Vance shoved Marcus toward the rear door of the cruiser. He opened it and grabbed Marcus's head to push him down into the hard plastic seat. Before he got in, Marcus planted his feet. He turned his head and looked Vance dead in the eye. The reflection of the officer's face in the mirrored sunglasses was distorted ugly. "Officer," Marcus said, his voice low and deadly serious. "I'm going to give you one last chance. You are making a career-ending mistake. You need to take my wallet out of my pocket and look at the last name on my license. And then you need to think very hard about who runs this city's police department." Vance froze for a split second. A flicker of doubt crossed his face. No, it was annoyance. He scoffed, shaking his head. "I don't care if your name is Rockefeller. I don't care who your mommy or daddy is. You're just another thief in a polo shirt. Get inside." Vance shoved him. Marcus stumbled into the back seat, the door slamming shut on his legs, forcing him to pull them in quickly. The lock engaged. He was trapped. Vance walked around to the driver's side, hiking up his belt, looking around at the gathering crowd in the parking lot with a smirk. He felt invincible. He had caught the bad guy. He had protected the business. He was the law. He climbed into the front seat, the air conditioning blasting against his face, and put the car in drive. He had no idea that he had just arrested the one person in the entire city who could dismantle his life with a single phone call. The drive to the 4th Precinct was a 12-minute journey through the heart of the city. For Officer Vance, it was a victory lap. He spent the time glancing in the rearview mirror, lecturing his prisoner. "You know, you kids are all the same," Vance said, one hand on the wheel, the other tapping on the console. "You think because you got a little job, you can skim off the top. Think no one's watching. That's the problem with your generation. No respect for property. No respect for the law." Marcus sat in the back, the hard plastic seat digging into his spine, his hands growing numb from the tight cuffs. He stared out the window, watching the city pass by. He didn't respond. He didn't argue. He was done talking to Officer Vance. He was counting the streets. Main Street, 4th Avenue, turning onto Oak. "Quiet back there now, huh?" Vance chuckled. "Yeah, that's what happens. Reality sets in. You're thinking about that jail cell. You're thinking about how you're going to explain this to your mama." Marcus closed his eyes for a second. "Oh, you have no idea," he thought. They pulled into the precinct sally port. The heavy steel gates rolled down behind them, sealing them inside. Vance killed the engine. "Let's go. Don't give me any trouble, and maybe I'll put in a good word with the judge. Tell him you cooperated eventually." Vance hauled Marcus out of the car. He marched him through the secure intake doors and into the main booking area. It was a busy Tuesday. Officers were typing reports, phones were ringing. The air smelled of stale coffee and floor wax. They walked toward the main desk. Sitting there was Desk Sergeant Thomas Pops Miller, no relation to the store manager. Sergeant Miller was a 60-year-old institution. He had been a cop since before Vance was born. He had creaky knees, a white mustache, and he knew every beat in the city. He also knew every family in the department. Vance walked up to the high desk, puffing slightly from the exertion. "Got a live one, Sarge. Grand larceny from the hardware store. Employee caught dipping in the till. Manager says he's been doing it for weeks." Sergeant Miller didn't look up immediately. He was finishing a form. "Name," he grunted. "Refused to give it at the scene." Vance lied. "But he's got ID on him." "I did not refuse," Marcus said, his voice ringing clear in the booking room. "Officer Vance refused to check it." Sergeant Miller stopped writing. He recognized that voice. It was a voice he had heard at department picnics. It was a voice he had heard debating politics at the chief's holiday parties. Slowly, Sergeant Miller looked up. He looked at Vance, looking proud and cocky. Then his gaze shifted to the young man in the handcuffs. The color drained from Sergeant Miller's face so fast it looked like he had been unplugged. His mouth opened, but no sound came out for a full 3 seconds. He stood up his chair, scraping loudly against the floor. "Marcus," the sergeant whispered. "Hello, Sergeant Miller," Marcus said politely. "I apologize for the disturbance. I'm afraid there's been a significant misunderstanding." Vance looked between them, a frown creasing his forehead. "You know this kid, Sarge, one of your CIs." Sergeant Miller looked at Vance with an expression of pure, unadulterated horror. It was the look of a man watching someone pull the pin on a grenade and drop it in their own pants. "Vance," Miller said, his voice trembling. "Do you have any idea who this is? Just some thief from Oak and Iron?" Vance shrugged. "Why, that is Marcus Thorne." Miller said the name hanging in the air like a guillotine blade. "As in, Chief Regina Thorne." The silence that followed was absolute. The typing stopped. The phones seemed to mute themselves. Every officer in the room froze. Vance blinked. "Chief Thorne, my mother," Marcus clarified helpfully. "Is she in today? I believe she has a budget meeting at 11 Hazura, so she should be upstairs." Vance's face went from flush to a sickly gray. The blood rushed out of his head, leaving him dizzy. He looked at the handcuffs on Marcus's wrists. He looked at the calm, confident face of the young man. He looked at the sergeant, who was already reaching for the red phone on his desk, the direct line to the chief's office. "Oh," Vance squeaked. It was the only sound he could make. The elevator ding at the far end of the hallway was usually a benign sound. Today it sounded like the tolling of a funeral bell. Sergeant Miller had made the call 30 seconds ago. "Chief, you need to come down to booking, now. It's Marcus." "No, ma'am, he's in cuffs." "Yes, ma'am. Officer Vance." Now the elevator doors slid open. Police Chief Regina Thorne stepped out. She was a woman of 55'9" with eyes that could cut glass and a presence that made grown men straighten their posture instinctively. She was not wearing her dress uniform. She was in a tactical polo and cargo pants ready for field inspection, which somehow made her look even more dangerous. She didn't run. She walked. Her boots struck the linoleum with a rhythmic, predatory cadence. Clack, clack, clack. The sea of officers parted. No one wanted to be in the blast radius. Vance was standing by the booking desk, paralyzed. He still had his hand loosely gripping Marcus's arm as if he had forgotten how to let go. Marcus stood patiently looking at his mother. Chief Thorne stopped 5 feet away. She looked at Marcus. She checked him for injuries, a mother's instinct scanning for blood or bruises. Her eyes landed on the tight handcuffs digging into his wrists, the skin around them red and angry. Then she turned her gaze to Officer Vance. "Officer Vance," she said. Her voice was not loud. It was terrifyingly quiet. It was the eye of the storm. "Why is my son in handcuffs?" Vance opened his mouth. His throat clicked. "Chief, the call came in. The manager said..." "Did you investigate?" she asked, taking a step closer. He was behind the counter." "Did you verify his employment?" He wouldn't." "Did you check his identification?" The volume was rising now, the storm breaking. You thought. Chief Thorne's voice cracked like thunder. "You arrested a citizen of this city without probable cause, without verification, based on nothing but the word of a third party and your own bias. Is that what you thought? Chief, he was resisting." Vance tried a desperate, fatal lie. "Do not lie to me," she roared. "I know this young man. He has more respect for the law in his little finger than you have in your entire body. He does not resist. He knows procedure better than you do." She turned to Sergeant Miller. "Get the keys. Uncuff him, now." Miller scrambled over the desk, keys in hand. He fumbled with the lock, his hands shaking. Click. The cuffs fell away. Marcus rubbed his wrists, grimacing. "Hi, Mom. Are you hurt?" she asked, her voice softening instantly as she looked at him. "Just some bruising. The cuffs were on pretty tight, and he twisted my shoulder a bit." Chief Thorne turned back to Vance. Her face was stone. "Badge," she said. "Chief, please, I was just following." "Badge," she screamed. "And your gun.
Put them on the desk. You are done. You are relieved of duty, effective immediately."
Vance's hands were trembling so badly he almost dropped his weapon as he unholstered it. He placed the Glock and his shield on the countertop. He looked like a child who had been caught playing with matches, only now realizing the house was burning down. "You have the right to remain silent," Chief Thorne said, staring him down. "I suggest you use it. Get him out of my sight." Two senior officers stepped forward, grabbing Vance by the arms firmly, not gently, and escorted him toward the administrative offices for processing. He walked like a zombie, his career evaporating with every step. Chief Thorne turned to her son. She took his face in her hands. "I am so sorry, Marcus. I am so sorry." "It's not your fault, Mom," Marcus said quietly. "But if it happened to me, imagine what he's been doing to everyone else." She nodded, a dark determination settling in her eyes. "We're going to find out. We're going to find out everything." The fallout was swift, brutal, and public. Officer Kyle Vance was not just fired. He was prosecuted. The investigation ordered by Chief Thorne uncovered the body cam footage which Vance had forgotten to turn off in his arrogance. It showed everything: the refusal to check ID, the immediate escalation, the rough handling, the derogatory comments. It contradicted his written report in every way. He was charged with assault, false imprisonment, and official misconduct. He pleaded guilty to lesser charges to avoid jail time, but he was stripped of his certification. He would never work in law enforcement again. Brett Miller, the manager at Oak and Iron, fared no better. When corporate headquarters saw the news, police chief's son racially profiled at hardware store, they went into damage control mode. Miller was fired for making a false police report and for the inventory shrinkage that he had tried to pin on Marcus. He was sued by the Thorne family for defamation. He lost his house. He left town. The city settled with Marcus for $2.5 million. It was a record settlement for a wrongful arrest that didn't involve hospitalization. Marcus didn't keep the money. He used it to start a legal defense fund for low-income teenagers who had been wrongfully detained by the Metro Police Department. He called it the Vance Initiative, a permanent reminder of the bad apple who started it all. But as the dust settled and the news cameras moved on to the next tragedy, the silence left behind was heavy. Marcus Thorne went back to school that fall. He still worked, though not at the hardware store. He walked a little differently now. He was warier. He knew that his education, his clothes, and even his mother's rank were thin shields against the jagged edge of prejudice. He had won, yes, but he had only won because of who he was. And that is the haunting question that lingers when the screen goes dark. What if his mother had been a nurse? What if she had been a bus driver? What if he had been just Marcus with no chief to come down the elevator? He would be in a cell. He would have a record. His future would be broken. That is the reality we live in. Justice shouldn't depend on who your parents are. It shouldn't depend on a viral video. It should be the baseline. Are we doing enough to hold these officers accountable before they target the wrong person? Or are we just waiting for the next lawsuit? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you believe that stories like this need to be told, that the truth needs a spotlight, please hit that subscribe button. We are building a community here that demands better. Join us.